So, babe, either where are you gonna sit?
Off center, like about right here, or the other side, whichever side you want to sit on. So on the video,
Gotta find out what's my good side.
look on. Still that seems that way.
Beautiful eyes.
Thank you. You too.
I guess not. You're just on the soft cushion.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah, that's way better.
Okay.
Gosh. Okay.
You ready?
Hold on.
Okay, welcome. This is the first of several videos we're gonna do. It's something that God really wanted us to do, to make videos, to kind of reach out and help His people, help all of our brothers and sisters, just to help understand how His heart is, what His heart is towards you, and especially finding your mate. So we just wanted to start off with my name is Raphael Adams, and this is Fagan Williams. We're not yet married. We will be married, and we just wanted to kind of detail to you or describe to you, give you the short story of how we came together and how we figured through, revelation, through confirmation within ourselves, with dreams, and with, talking to other people, friends and family, how we came to know that this is the individual that God wanted us to be with. So, where do we start?
So I think we should start with maybe just starting with kind of your journey beforehand, or like maybe just like a snippet of where you were right before we met one another.
Okay, my snippet, the story, I guess the backstory is how it led up into when we first contacted each other, how we first met, or decided to, I guess, talk and date. I was actually out of a relationship with an individual. Didn't really, honestly, it wasn't a relationship that I should have engaged in. It was something that I think the Lord intended it for it to be more of a friendship and not a dating relationship, and that's the biggest problem. And to be transparent, it was, sex was involved, so that was an issue as well. So coming out of that, and then just kind of just cutting myself away from just being in any type of relationship, I basically just decided in my heart, I said, I was just telling or praying that, Lord, at this moment, I really don't care whether I'm in another relationship right now or not. Honestly, you've told me that I will be married. You've shown me and confirmed to me those things. So it's either I continue to try to look for that individual in my way, or I just sit back and relax, not be lazy, but honestly put my trust in you that you will confirm to me who it is without my input, into what He was trying to do. So that's kind of how it led into us talking, or beginning to talk.
So for me, it was really different. For me, I actually had just gotten divorced, and I think the ink wasn't even dry in the divorce papers. So like I had just gotten a divorce. That's a whole nother story, but I was pretty much married to someone who was not my husband. I know that might sound weird, but I was married to someone who I was never supposed to be married to. And as a result, it caused a lot of turmoil in my life. Depression, all types of things. And so I was in a bad state of mind in that marriage. And so I divorced him. We got a divorce, and I was just I don't know, I was in a season with God that I was just like, me and you. I was like, me and you. Like, I'm completely good. And I think I was kind of like playing both sides of the fence, because I was saying I didn't want a relationship. I just was okay with just being with God. And I really felt like the marriage showed me a lot about myself. And so I really wanted to be in closeness with God, so that he can show me or fix the things in me that I saw during the marriage. And to me, I couldn't do that dating. I felt like I couldn't fix me or work on me if I was focused on someone else. So I told God I didn't want a boyfriend. I was not interested in being in a relationship, but I was still doing things like writing lists that, actually, in all honesty, because I was in that season of not wanting to be in a relationship, I didn't have a list or anything like that. I threw away my previous list because I realized that wasn't it. We'll get into lists later. But I went to God and I was telling him how I did not want to be in a relationship. And what he did was he rebuked me. And he was like, you can't tell me what you want, because my purpose for you is way bigger than this fear of yours. And so I kind of changed things a little bit, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I ended up writing a list. And this list was really God, because I knew it was God, because I didn't pre-plan this list. I wasn't even thinking so much when I was writing it. I was asking God, okay, what is it that you want? And he completely just had me write this list out, and it was completely different than my first one. It didn't have anything superficial. Everything was very spiritual. Everything was very character based, and it was just phenomenal. And so I wrote that list, and I felt good about it, and I still was like, no, just me and you, Lord. And I continued to go to church, and that's where we met, because we go to the same church, and we've been to the same church for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So initially, honestly, I had a different picture of who my wife would be. So, and that's why we say we'll get into the list a little bit later, probably in a separate video. But let me rewind just a tad bit. When I first got to this church, the Lord had already shown me a dream concerning her. It wasn't even a simple dream. It was a dream, more of a purpose dream. Without getting too many details, he showed me her and he showed me her daughter. But the issue was, for me, is that at the time we hadn't really met. So he was showing me her daughter when I never met her daughter. So that's how I kind of knew that, okay, that there was something behind this. There was something a little more than just infatuation or
A crush
or anything like that, because why would the Lord give me a dream of her daughter and then another individual that was at the church? So those three elements by themselves it pretty much just give you the flags to really see or to understand that this was something a little different than your normal strange dream, or whatever you could call it. So so after he gave me that dream, I just was seeking the Lord about it. And then not too much longer after, and I didn't write the dates down for the dream, but I know within a year or so, he showed me another dream. And in that dream, we're at the top of a skyscraper, and in the process of me doing something with so description of what it looked like. It was the top floor. The top floor was more in the shape of the roof of a house. There was the roof of a house, but it was all glass, the entire top floor. And it was small, so just imagine if there was like a single room house at the top of a skyscraper, and it's made completely of glass. So I'm walking around this platform. This glass platform is on the outside of it to where you can walk on it. And it's outside, like you're literally, once you're on the platform, you're walking outside because it's not enclosed. I looked and it was Fagin, and I don't understand why she was there, but she's there and she has on this, you could say a white slip type dress, simple dress. I wouldn't say spaghetti straps, but it had straps, and she, you know, bare feet, and she was on a diving board, a glass diving board actually, and she holds her hands out like she was doing like a swan dive or something, preparing to dive, and then she dives off the side of the skyscraper. And what was crazy, not only was that crazy, but what was even crazier was that probably a floor or so below us, there was another platform, but on that platform there was a pool of water, and she dives right into the pool of water. She gets out of the pool, and now her dress is showing like, is like emanating bright colors. It was almost as if the colors were shining from the dress, but the colors themselves were moving, per se. It was almost like the colors were alive. So I didn't understand the dream, but fast forward to now, and just me being more open to share my dreams. I shared it with a friend of mine, and so basically the gist of the dream just told me through a recent interpretation through a friend of mine, that she was actually God's promise to me. And this was, like I said, I had the dream when I first joined the church. So God had already kind of told me before I even understood what the dream meant. And it kind of, I think the one thing you have to be careful of is sometimes you really have to I would say, pay attention to your dreams. And I say that because had I understood the dream, I wonder if I would have approached her again instead of being afraid to approach her like I was before. Had I known the interpretation of the dream, would I have been more bold to, you know, like would I have been more bold to approach her like I should have? After all that, coming to this, I guess, this place in our lives now, and she'll begin explaining how actually the interaction this past October kind of started, which was something crazy because it seemed like every time through all this, God was speaking to both of us through our dreams and letting us know and confirming to us who He created us to be and why He wanted us together.
So what I don't want to do is I don't want to rush through the dreams.
Okay.
Right? So I don't want to rush through that. I would like to put that in like another video. That was a big reason why or how we knew we were meant for one another. Now, I wasn't having dreams about him while I was married or anything. He had dreams about me before he even really knew me. He has never met my daughter, but had a dream about her, and then saw her at church and realized, oh, you're her daughter, you know, and so kind of put two and two together. I think it's important to mention that whoever this person is that God has for you, I believe that it's just my opinion. I believe that the person's already ordained to be your husband or be your wife.
Yes, and I mean, the biggest part of it, and I know a lot of people have questions about whether there's a soulmate or whether there is possibly a soulmate if there's the perfect individual for everyone. And our interactions and our understanding of God has pointed us to the simple fact that yes, that is correct. So this is not something that you take and you pick your soulmate. It is definitely something where you have to seek God, and you really have to have that relationship with Him, so that at the proper time He'll bring you the one that He has for you. This does not mean that those who had divorces or breakups or anything like that you're disqualified. That's not what that means. That simply means that if you be patient and allow God to change you and work on your heart, and the more you grow with Him, in time, the one that He wants for you will come to you. It's not something that you have to go chase someone for. You have to go chase this person or chase that person or get emotionally out of whack because you're alone or you feel alone or anything like that. Don't let that stuff bother you, because basically the season where you're single is the season that should be more, it should be more important than the season that you're married. And I say that because two great single people will make a marriage work. But if you're single and you're broken and you try to get into a relationship with someone, whether they're broken or not, you're going to bring that brokenness into the relationship. So know that, yes, God does have someone specific for you, but focus on your relationship with God. And I think that's the biggest point that we're trying to make, because it is that alone time with God that allows you to see yourself, that allows you to see the things that you need to change. Because if you bring that into a relationship is as important as marriage. It could do a lot of damage if you're not healed, if you're not working towards being healed and working towards a better relationship with God. Because there are just a few things that are just important in that case, because discerning who this individual is. There are a lot of people who you meet someone and you think that this person is the one, but red flags come up. You know, whether this person...
We can talk about red flags all day.
Whether this person is not saved, whether this person has a particular mentality. In that instance, don't push aside the red flags in order to force yourself into something that you think is the better thing to do. Even though, okay, this person has already shown you that they, for instance, they may have the wrong attitude. They may say stuff that, you know, typically someone who's trying to mature, doesn't mean that they're perfect right now. I mean, because people make mistakes, but that shows that they're progressing, at least progressing towards being more mature.
I think there's three things that I've gotten out of what he just said, that I think it's important enough to sit and kind of marinate on. And I don't know if we can do that in this video, but I definitely want to in another video. Three things. One is basically brokenness versus wholeness. And so he said something about the idea of you bringing brokenness into a relationship, or a relationship as part in his marriage, and now you're having a broken marriage. So there's a few things I kind of want to mention about that. Is brokenness versus wholeness. A lot of times something that looks whole is broken, and a lot of times something that looks broken is whole.
Be careful how you interpret the words broken and whole, because like she said, what you would see as broken is actually whole, and what you would probably see as whole is actually broken. We're not even talking about, and basically some of that stems from the facade that kind of people walk in. They pretend, or they're smiling all the time. They don't have issues, or they don't visibly show that they have issues or anything like that. But like we said, God knows your heart. But don't ever misinterpret whole and brokenness as factors as to say when you're ready to be with your spouse, because we're still in a process of growing. We're still learning one another. We're still learning about ourselves. There are particular issues that God is still revealing to us that we have, that we need to take care of before we get married.
This was always my husband, but I'm over here in a whole nother relationship. He's dating, but he's still going on with life. Life is still happening for him. And so for me, I'm over here married. I had another baby. So now I have 2 children. I'm literally over here thinking that I'm building some sort of life for myself, which I'm not. But God, actually, what he did was he kept him, like sustained him, because he knew, okay, on this day, on this hour, this is what I'm going to do in Fagan's life. And it's going to free her up in a way, lack of better terms, it's going to free her up for you or for Ralph. So if we can just sustain him, if we can just keep him, and I'm going to have their past intertwine again. And for anyone who believes that God is never gonna God is never going to take you or picture you for another person. If you're married to someone else, well, then we are putting God in a box and we're saying, well, God can't do this and God won't do that. And that is dangerous because you're limiting him.
So the biggest thing, like we said before, is understanding that destiny is already written for you. And God wants you to follow his destiny. But in the case where you do make mistakes, he does provide grace in order to catch you and to order to keep you on the path. And that's what's so amazing about him, is that in the midst of all the mistakes, so not saying, just adding on to what she was saying, like I was in relationships that I probably shouldn't have been in. And yes, God still kept me, but it doesn't negate the simple fact that I was making choices I shouldn't have made. I want you to really know that because God does have someone for you, it is so much worth it to wait for his timing, and to wait on him in order to move forward with that type of decision, because God doesn't make mistakes. We do. So a lot of people pitch grace as an excuse for making a mistake, when that's not what God wanted grace to be used for. He wanted grace to be used for in the case where you didn't know any better, that the grace would be there to catch you and to pick you back up when you fail. It was never to be used as a tool in order to
keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing the wrong thing. Like, honestly, if we had not made those pivotal mistakes in our lives, would we have met sooner?
Or been together sooner.
Yeah, or been together sooner. So.
But that could be a dangerous game to play too.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm a big believer in like the sovereignty of God, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's like we can do this all day. We could say, well, like, what if we did this or what if we did that? But honestly, and this is just a huge part of why I'm just so smitten by God, because even though those 2 years of marriage were so hard, when I step back and I look at Ralph, the first thing I think of is, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me someone who, not even thank you for giving me someone, thank you for allowing me to go through. We don't do that often. We don't thank him for the turmoil, but I thank you for allowing me to go through. He allowed me to go through, because if I had not gone through with my last marriage, I don't know if I would have appreciated Ralph like I do. I know I wouldn't have appreciated Ralph like I do. And that goes back to the list that we have not talked about yet. But the list thing, my previous list, Ralph was in there somewhere, but he was not my list. There was things in my list that were not God's will for me. It was my will. It was superficial. It was my own desires. And so I know I wouldn't have appreciated him if he had come to me, or if I had accepted his date years ago, because he wasn't my list. So I had to get my list to realize, girl, that's not your list, okay? That's not God's list. That's your list. And the devil hears you just like God hears you. And he brought me someone who was my list. And so now I have someone who God created for me. And that is nothing. It's what I had before was nothing compared to God's will for me. And so I thank God that I went through that, because now I can appreciate Ralph for who he is and what he does and just everything.
So this will end this video, but we'll have more videos to kind of tag on to this, and we'll continue the discussion.
Yes, this video has shown us that there's so much that we want to cover, and we feel like, we might have to have part 2 or 3 or 4 for this, because
there's a lot of information.
It's important.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be short, but yeah,
No.
there's a lot more information that we want to share with you guys. So,
Be blessed.
till next time,
Highly favored.
be blessed. Thank you. Thank you for listening, guys. Bye.